Howdy, and welcome back for all you bad mofos out there in the Black Army radio realm. Welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to the movement. We appreciate it. We're so glad you locked in here today. And before we get into it, real quick, if this show's ever made you think or laugh or feel some kind of way about any of these topics, please give us a 5-star rating and give us a follow on whatever platform it is you're listening or watching on. We really appreciate it. It means more than you think it does. The episode or the information that you thought was worth a damn spreading, send that sucker to a friend. We'd really appreciate it. Now, this will be kind of the second episode of a focus on psychedelic therapy and psychedelic treatments. This is going to be primarily for the veteran community. We're going to dabble into outcomes in regards to humans, individuals out there that aren't veterans, because obviously they can benefit from these things as well. Our guest today that we just got done spoken to, and the interview was fabulous, a couple hours long, is an individual that we're going to call Robert. Now, Robert is still operational. In other words, he still holds security clearances. He's out there doing the work. He's still kicking doors and taking names out there. And so we can't divulge who he is or who he actually works for right now or who holds his security clearances. But a little bit of background on this individual. He was a former Army Ranger within the 75th Ranger Regiment. He is also currently an independent contractor working in the contractor realm. Like we said, still operational. He also has a pretty good academic background. He has an undergraduate degree, his bachelor's. He also has a master's degree. And so he's an educated man. He's also continuing his education as we speak right now, adding on to his master's. What we're going to kind of get into here is plant medicine, focusing on psychedelics and the veteran space, the kind of the history of this movement and the context on how really it's in a lot of ways the psychedelic movement has been spearheaded by veterans. And that's something that luckily our community today has, that the Vietnam generation and the generations before the Vietnam generation did not have access to. We have access to this, and we're very blessed to be able to use these outcomes because veterans from previous eras were put in a cage. They were incarcerated for trying to heal themselves naturally by the state. And so they were hunted and put in cage for using psychedelics. And that's not necessarily the case anymore, even though it is still Schedule 1. We do have a lot to worry about here. In some parts of the United States, for sure, peyote, ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin, you use any of these things, cops are still going to show up at your house. They're going to arrest you and they're going to put you in a cage for this. And so we got to be careful about that. And we got to be careful when it comes to divulging who this man is. We get into the different modalities, such as ayahuasca, ibogaine, 5-MeO, DMT, which Robert calls, I believe he calls it toad medicine, which a lot of times comes from frogs and toads. Psilocybin, MDMA, ketamine. They all do different kinds of things. There's different outcomes for the individuals with this. Integration, how important it is, especially with the focus on veterans after. The kind of individual, what kind of individual you need to be kind of going into this, and what kind of individual you need to be coming out of it to get the most out of it. We go into that a lot. That also plays into purpose. Okay. What is the purpose of this? What role are you trying to play here? What kind of recovery are you trying to get? Also pitfalls. What could go wrong? Because there are circumstances where somebody can get taken advantage of. These things before were pretty under the radar. You had to really, really search it with intention to get these outcomes and to go down and receive these treatments. Now it's a lot more commonplace now. And there's good and bad with that, because you're getting charlatans out there that are taking advantage of people through these programs, people that really need significant help. And that's, you kind of see that with everything and with all different walks of life. But it's interesting because it's, unfortunately, especially if you're a woman, you need to really make sure you got a handle on where you're going, what medicine you're taking, and who is going to be around you, and make sure that you're going to be safe. And so that's very, very important. For those of you out there that are purists when it comes to the 75th Ranger Regiment, there is part of this discussion where we talk about how some other communities, such as the SEAL community and even the Green Beret community, they have a lineage that kind of goes back to Vietnam. Regarding the Rangers specifically, and this is for those of you out there that might have a problem with how Robert talks about how our lineage doesn't go back that far. The Ranger Regiment was kind of stood up right around the 80s and a little bit after, like permanently. Now, of course, Rangers, Army Rangers, have been around since the Revolutionary War, beginning with Robert's Rangers and the standing orders, and then they usually get disbanded. And so when he talks about the lineage of the Ranger Regiment, he's talking about the current Ranger Regiment as it exists today, not as it exists historically throughout time. You know, even like Saving Private Ryan, those guys were Army Rangers, but it was disbanded. And in Vietnam, Ranger units usually consisted of units for long range reconnaissance and patrol, LRPs, that were brought together from various different, some kind of the best guys in a lot of different outfits brought together to do long range reconnaissance and surveillance. And those were the LRPs and the Rangers in Vietnam. And so just want to clear that up because I know there's some guys out there that might have a problem with that. But anyway, without any further ado, and I really hope you guys appreciate this and can take some of this home with you. And if you got a buddy out there that needs help, if you personally need help, we're going to talk about a few different outfits and veteran-run psychedelic institutions, whether it's Vets Incorporated or Heroic Hearts Project. They're started by SEALs and Rangers, to reach out to these organizations, to Google them, to call them, reach out on behalf of your spouse or your buddy or something else if he won't do it for themselves. And I think that's kind of important. In our community, we got to watch out for each other. We're supposed to be a tribe. And that's what the Brotherhood is. The Brotherhood is a tribe. And so without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Robert. All right, howdy. Today, we got a special guest. However, the real and actual identity of our guest will not be revealed. Instead, we will simply call him Robert. Robert is a former bat boy, or for the layman, those of you out there that don't know, he was in the 75th Ranger Regiment, U.S. Army. That's a Tier 2 door kicker outfit that falls within JSOC, or Joint Special Operations Command. Currently, Robert is still operational. He holds a security clearance. He still deploys overseas, and he still does work. So we can't out him, and we got to be careful in this conversation. Additionally, Robert is educated. He holds an undergraduate degree, which is a bachelor's, and he has a graduate degree as well, his master's. And what Robert is here to talk about is the veteran psychedelic movement, and the components that surround it. Now, a little quick background on this for those of you out there, just so you have some numbers on how this looks. The veteran psychedelic movement has gone fully above ground. The Stanford study published in Nature Medicine in January of 2024, followed 30 former special operations veterans through an ibogaine and magnesium therapy treatment clinic in Mexico. The results seem to be pretty damn astounding. You have an 88% reduction in PTSD symptoms, 87% reduction in depression, 81% reduction in anxiety, plus measurable cognitive recovery from TBI, which is traumatic brain injuries. A lot of veterans suffer from that, whether you're a breacher or even a machine gunner. I mean, a lot of TBI. The lead author, Dr. Nolan Williams at Stanford, has said no other drug has ever touched TBI or PTSD symptoms like this ever produced, manufactured, all right, within the pharmaceutical industry. The infrastructure, most interestingly, is primarily and mostly veteran built. And I'm going to give you guys out there a few different institutions that do this stuff. And if you're out there and you're struggling personally, you know somebody that's struggling, you got a family member, maybe a veteran, or it doesn't have to be a veteran. Also, a lot of people suffer from trauma, like we said in the last episode with Melina Bricker. Look them up. You can Google all these outfits. You can get emails, phone numbers. You can contact them. You can ask them questions about how all this stuff works. The application process isn't bad. All right. The first one is Vets Inc. It was started by Marcus Capone, who was a former Navy SEAL, and he's sponsored over 1,000 treatments, primarily focusing on ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT. He does it primarily in Mexico. The next one, and I know about this outfit personally, is fantastic. It's called the Heroic Hearts Project. It was founded by Jesse Gold. He was a former Army Ranger, bat boy like us, and focuses on ayahuasca retreats in Peru and Costa Rica. Interestingly, he actually first got really interested in the topic listening to Joe Rogan, which is kind of interesting. The next one, the All Secure Foundation. This is started by Tom Satterley. He's a former CAG guy, Combat Applications Group, or Delta, as you would know him out there in the movie world. Broader veteran mental health. It includes psychedelic referrals to a lot of these other institutions. That's another one. The next one, Mission Within. Mission Within. This is Dr. Martin Polanico. It's a Mexico-based clinic. It focuses on ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT protocol. This seems to be pretty popular with special operations dudes, former special operations dudes. And the last one, Ambio Life Sciences. Ambio Life Sciences. This is the Mexico clinic that the Stanford study that we talked about when it came to the numbers stemmed from. All right. And so, without any further ado, with all that being said, we will welcome our guest, Robert, to the show. All right, Robert. We're obviously not going to talk about specifics with you. We're going to be careful with this. Let us know if we step on our dicks a little bit. Want to make sure that doesn't happen. But I want the audience to know something out the gate. You wore the Ranger scroll, same as me, same outfit I came up in. So this interview, in a lot of ways, we're not strangers, and there's a reason for that. For people out there listening that have never been in our world, can you tell us, just give us a brief description on what being a Ranger actually means to you? Not the slogan, but the real damn thing.
For me, it sucks. The lifestyle, it's not pleasant.
No.
And that's, I think, how it's supposed to be, because it gets rid of kind of the malingers and the people that just want to chase the title but don't want to live it. I mean, I did a few deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, got injured. I was in the Army about going around 10 years. And then
wow.
did the deployments, all that stuff, then got injured overseas and got medically out on a medical. But for me, it's about accountability culture. And I kind of see that now, being older, you kind of need that team room environment to kind of check people and also identify the people that aren't there for the right reasons. You got to get rid of them. It's about standards. And that's what I think everything, if you want to maintain a high level of people, high quality, you have to have standards. And that's something I just don't see today in civilian society. But you're surrounded by guys that are hungry, 18 to 22 for the most part. They're just young and hungry, intelligent. And I kind of see that, being years removed from that organization. I see the guys that were hungry and the guys that weren't hungry in Ranger Battalion. They were just kind of going through the motions, and the guys that are hungry are successful outside the military. The guys that aren't hungry, just kind of, like as we were discussing before, they're bloated, they don't work out, they're 42 years old, and they're living off something they did 20 years ago. It's like that guy that lives off their high school football game. I scored 3 touchdowns, Polk High. You know what I mean? Like it's, so I see the guys in an organization like that are hungry, constantly challenging themselves. They make for great entrepreneurs, people that are successful in the civilian side, where again, the guys that are just living off something they did 20 years ago, they're fat, they're bloated. A lot of them, I just had a buddy I served with. I mean, he just died of a heart attack at like 45. You see these guys, they're hard partying, drinking, and they're dead at 45. So it comes back to that lifestyle. You have to constantly be hungry. I mean, I know SEALs right now that have been retired for years. They're 55 hiking the what's that trail in Colorado? It's 500 miles long. It's like the Colorado Continental Trail.
Continental Divide.
Yeah.
Great Divide.
It's they're 55 hiking that. And some of these guys, they won't even do that in their 30s or 40s because they're too busy at the bar and they're 40 pounds overweight. So for me, it's about a high accountability culture, and it's just constantly maintaining a standard. So, yeah.
I agree, man. I agree. And I've seen that myself, especially in a lot of reunions and stuff that we do kind of a yearly reunion, and it fluctuates with dudes who show up and can't show up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I definitely see that a lot myself. And it sucks when you see guys fall off, man. It's tough to see, because when you fall off physically, I think you kind of fall off psychologically and mentally a lot too.
Yeah.
There's attachment there,
Give up.
obviously. It's all a piece of the puzzle. And so, yeah, and so now you're in the contractor world. You're an independent contractor, I assume, doing your own thing, working for various outfits, holding a security clearance, still doing the job. Do you want to get in at all to how that separates from being a
Yeah,
regiment,
I mean, I'll just
like this world?
y yeah, I mean, contracting is I mean, they told me I couldn't jump out of airplanes anymore, so my career's over with, but I could still run and gun, run around, do stuff, and I kind of fell into that, jumping from contract to contract for years, right now, contracting's I mean, the golden years are back just because the world's so unstable, the world's so dangerous.
Mhm.
Contracting's it's back. It's like the thousands all over again. And it's not
Yeah.
because the world's safe and everything's good. It's because it's very dangerous out there. There's a lot of stuff coming across the radar these days, and it's good money. In the 2010s, it wasn't that good, pretty slow, but now it's I mean, it's really good right now. So,
I've been hearing that from a lot of guys still in the game. I remember back when I was still contracting, it seemed like a lot of guys were really worried about the end of the war. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I remember guys talking about it
Yeah.
being like, "Shit, what are we gonna do for work? We're gonna have to get like a normal job." Everybody's like, "I guess I'll be a cop," like, what do I translate to?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I did. I became a cop, and it wasn't shit, man. We had that conversation a little bit, and it definitely wasn't anything like for me, for what I needed in the brotherhood between being a contractor and former bat guy. Like the cop world was hard for me. It was a hard transition, man. I've
Yeah.
seen that for a lot of guys. It took me years and years to
Oh,
to
yeah.
kind of like mentally deal with that, And so
I mean,
that's
you got that pirate in you. You just can't whip out the piece and blow somebody away.
no,
It's a lot of
I
paperwork.
can't do that. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, those days are over. At least CONUS anyway,
Yeah.
when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, overseas, somebody messes around, you just smoke them, and that's it.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, being a
That's true.
cop, and it's like,
That's true.
it's,
Mhm. It's
being
very
a cop
defensive
is
being a
like,
cop. Very defensive.
yeah,
You're not
essentially, it
offensive at
depends
all.
on the
You're not
city.
supposed to be offensive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you're in the wrong city, I mean, you're gonna get crucified. That's why New York cops aren't enforcing anything because they don't want to get sued or they don't want to go to prison. So cops are just in it for the
Yeah,
retirement now.
that's totally true. I had a buddy who also contracted with. He was a Marine, and he went Boston. He was in Boston doing cop stuff there for a long time. He actually switched over. He's doing what is he? DEA. I think he went DEA. He started ATF, and thank fucking God
Yeah.
he switched over to DEA. Like in the middle of the academy, I think he
Yeah.
was able to switch over and switched over to DEA, and he's doing that now. But he was telling me the same shit, man. He was just like, dude, we can't do anything. Like we can't like we hook dudes and they're out 5 minutes later, even for real bad stuff. I mean, he just
Yeah.
said it just wasn't worth it. And you're right. There was the bennies. He was basically doing it because the bennies were still so good. He had great
Yep.
benefits for his wife and his kids and shit. And so he's like, I'll just suck it up. And then he went federal. And so, to actually do something. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
that's
you're in that pipeline. You're like, I'm like 12 years in. I got my military. If I just suck it up for 8 years, I'll be out. And it's just like, for me, it's a
mhm,
hellacious way to live life. You're slave to that retirement and you can't really be who you want to be. And I can't
yeah,
do it. I saw too many guys and they're just, yeah, it steals their soul.
it does, dude. You do like it's 6 years and a wake up. And that's all you're thinking about is this damn retirement
Yeah.
all the time. Like, I swear to God.
Yep.
And so that's definitely true. But the good thing is with him switch, for example, and there's the same thing with me, like when I became federal, like my federal service counted towards my military service towards retirement. So a lot of guys like this guy I'm talking about now, he switched federal because he could, put the military years and stack it with his DEA years towards his retirement, which you can't do that for state, I don't think. And so, but you're right, dude.
Yeah.
That's the exact reason he did it, man. He did it for that. He switched over federal because and he grew up in Boston his whole life. And it was like he switched over federal for the retirement, better retirement, early retirement, and counting his medical career, not medical career, military career. And it's like, dude,
Yep.
we're living a whole life, man. We're out here fucking busting it till we're in our 50s just so we can have a little bit of money to go do
So you can die
fishing
on a beach
without
at 60.
somebody telling you what to
Yeah.
do. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Drives guys
and
crazy.
it kind of plays into that whole post military lifestyle depression. It's like, wow, I'm just going to slave away for this retirement and I'll probably have a heart attack at like 55 or 60 probably. So I'm not going to really even spend it. So what's there even to live
Yeah.
for? And guys just go down that depression sinkhole. So yeah,
Yeah. Or they lose you lose the meaning eventually, which I remember I struggled with that a lot when I came through. And for me, it was actually when I was a cop. Like, I lost the meaning as a cop, man, because I did not find any fulfillment really, honestly, initially in being like, in law enforcement. I just didn't. I
Well,
didn't find that. Yeah, go ahead,
and I
Joel.
think it's I think it's an interesting transition of when at times in your life, because I imagine, this is coming out between your 30s and 50s in that era and like trying to find a new job when you're already a man, you have a set of ideals what you want to live by, so you're trying to find something that like fits in versus, somebody starting your career when they're 20 and retiring like you're almost forced to like you get out of the military and like I need to find the next thing that is the closest to the military. So it's a cop or I mean most people I knew go into contracting because the money's there and you don't have to give up your life, you're 6 months on, 3 months off, you fly anywhere you want to. But
Mhm.
and then when you go into like it just seems like a really weird time to I think anybody who is 40 trying to rebuild their life and figure out what the fuck they want to do and especially if you're a type A personality where most of your life was built on being a badass, being a man, doing intense things, like that's a real weird time in your life to figure out like what the fuck I want to do next. You already feel like your life's halfway over and you got 20 more years of life if you're lucky of like meaningful go out and do stuff life, and I think it's
Mhm.
a real awkward time to have a mental crisis and a crisis like that to figure out what you wanna do as well.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're usually by then, you've got a wife and kids, and so you're not dealing with it individually. Like, I mean, for me, it was like you're dealing with it with these other people that depend on you, and if your shit's fucked up, that's gonna be a big, big problem, and that actually kinda leads us right into
the
the next
walls start
segment where we can
closing
talk about
in.
kind of the cost. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. Yeah. The walls start closing in because now you got the wife and the kid. And then you're like, God, I don't want to have my girl on a stripper pole one day. And, because of daddy issues, I'm gone or something like that. And so a lot of guys are thinking about that too. And a lot of guys, their kids don't like them. They don't talk to them. I mean, you're gone 6 months out of the year or 9 months out of the year. After a while, there's just so much resentment I've seen because of all the kid goes out to the softball game, plays baseball, and all their parents are there, and you're never there. And it just after a while, it just burrows down where this resentment just after the kid just gets angry and he doesn't care like what you did all the cool guy stuff in the military. They don't care. It's like you weren't at
Yeah.
my baseball game for like 10 years. So, and then you come home to that if you're a contractor or military or whatever, and it's you step from one war zone to another war zone. So,
That's exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
that's
That's a good way to put it. You don't wanna feel about home being a war zone, but it does feel that way, man.
no
It
peace.
absolutely does feel that way. Yeah, it
well, and that's gotta create some sort
100% feels
of
that way.
shame and guilt that leads into all the other mental stuff and the high suicide rate, like, that just builds shame when
Mhm.
you're feeling like you're a disappointment to your family, like, you're making, it's a slippery slope once you're to that point.
Yeah, I know for me, the whole thing was deployment, like you're talking about, Robert. Like, when I started having kids, I remember when I had my first kid, I was like, "I gotta do something else. I can't be gone 9 months out of the year, 6 months out of the year." And that's when I transitioned to being, in the feds, and man, I it was such a catch-22 because I was depressed as shit for years, man, being home. Like, it really was. I look back at it, and I almost with, like, kinda, like, I get mad at myself, you know what I mean, with how I was, and it pisses me off, and I still fight a lot of those demons even today. I've gotten a lot better with it, but I mean, even finding meaning after post that now for me, building my education and doing this and like working towards the PhD and stuff. It's like you said, Robert, you got to keep going, bro. You can't fucking stop. Like, I was like, okay, I'm done carrying a gun for a living. I'm not carrying a gun for a living. Like, I need to do something now. I'm gonna need to do something now. I'm gonna lose my mind, you know? And so for me, it was like
Yeah,
working
it's
towards my
monotonous.
PhD. Yeah. And it was like that
Yeah.
gave me meaning. And it's like, even though I got all these kids and my wife, and it's not doesn't take anything away from them, and I do find a lot of meaning in that. But I needed to find individual personal meaning for me. Just for me. You know what I'm saying? And not to be the umbrella over the family. Like this had to be for me. And finding that transition, whether it was from military to contractor, contractor to cop, and now cop from to what I'm doing now, it's like you got to keep pushing forward, brother. You have got to push forward, man. Like if you don't, it'll kill you. And so, with that, the kind of the
Well, and
cost, and so
that's the yeah.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, it's you can only do the same thing for so long before you start. I mean, like firefighters, 48 on, 24 off. But how many times, how many years can you just do the same workout, the same schedule
Hmm.
before it just drives you insane? It's no different than being in prison after a while.
Yeah.
And sometimes the gates of hell are locked from the inside. So that's why you see a lot of these first responders, firefighters, or whoever. It's just Groundhog Day every day. But you weren't created to
Yeah.
be in a cell, the wage cage. I mean, this whole new like cubicle thing is new. We've been running with the Eagles, living in nature for millions of years. And now all of a sudden
Yep.
we're 10 hours, 8 hours sitting down in a desk. It's just
Yep.
unnatural.
Well, and we have throw our kids into a classroom and want them to sit for 8 hours. It's the
Yep.
same difference when we wonder why our education's gotten worse, why ADD is climbing through the roof, is because we're not meant to sit in a cubicle and sit and read a book we need to move, we need to do things, use our hands, build motor skills. It's not just intellect, and it's a weird wage
Yep.
trade. School was made for us to be good employees. It wasn't made for us to be
Mhm.
educated. It was made for us to be good employees, and the whole system is
Yeah.
kind of led into this, where we're at now. And now you have media, so people could totally disconnect from everybody with social media and the internet. And we have the ability to talk to anybody in the world, and we're the most loneliest we've been. It's a crazy,
Mhm.
crazy thing.
And if your kids can't
Yeah.
sit there for 8 hours a day, sucking it in, whatever it is, they're going to medicate them. They're going to medicate them. They're going to put them
Happy
on
pills.
medicines. They're going to put them on
Happy pills.
meds.
I was on Ritalin at
Yep, and they're
7.
gonna be like, "You
So,
need." And little boys, dude, like, I got 3 boys, bro, and, like, I can't get these kids to sit down to watch a fucking football game of the team that they love the most. Like, they can't sit there for 5 minutes in my house at all, ever. They're reverberating. Like, I can look at my boys and literally feel their energy. Like, I can feel it. You know what I mean? 'Cause they're just like a buzzsaw. They're sitting there on the couch, and they're just like, and I'm just like, man, I do not know how they do school. And then they send them home with homework. And I'm like, dude, 8, 9 hours at school isn't enough. They got to do shit at home now, too.
yeah.
On top of that, I'm very anti homework. This is a
Yeah.
completely different thing. But I'm like, listen, they're designing these kids, and then they're medicating these kids, and they're forcing them to do exactly like we're not running with the Eagles, like Robert said. No, we're not running with the Eagles. We're running with the freaking copy machines. We're running with the fax machines. Those don't exist anymore.
It's the
Running
Matrix.
with like
Yeah.
that's what we do, man. And yeah, it's crazy. And so for you, hey, for you, the cost going back, to like why we're here.
Yeah.
For people listening, who think PTSD is the guy hiding under the table, when
Yeah.
a car backfires, or people that get on Facebook and say, don't shoot off fireworks because it's going to bother your veteran friends, which I hate, by the way. What does that actually look like for someone like you, someone still operational, still holding the clearance, because you're putting
Um,
yourself in this world.
yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, what I've noticed, what I've observed, and kind of in the game, just to kind of breach into the psychedelic entheogenic space. A lot of the guys, because I've been in this space since 2018, and before a lot of people even knew about it, and is really kind of kicked off in 2017. It was some damn net guys and going down through like Marcus Capone, Amber Capone, going down to Mexico in 2017 that's where it all started to kick off. And they were doing ibogaine and toad, 5-MeO-DMT. And that protocol was used for drug addicts back in the day. And they found out it worked with veterans. And after all these years, one thing the common denominator they found out is a lot of this, the so-called PTSD, doesn't derive from overseas. It's childhood. All the stuff they do is from childhood. So a lot of these, the rape, molestation, physical abuse, stuff like that, whatever it is, a lot of the so-called PTSD, whatever you want to put the name on it, it's all semantics. It comes from childhood. And that's what everybody's seeing through the studies and everything. It's what drove this guy to kind of be a masochist and join the military, do special operations, crawl through the mud, get beat, go overseas, what drove him. And it's kind of those beatings as a kid or some type of childhood trauma as a kid. Because if they grew up like, wow, I got a really good childhood or nothing's wrong with me, to like, I don't know if I want to, it just takes, they got to have that certain thing. They want to go through that masochistic lifestyle to go into the military. A lot of these guys, some guys, it's genuine. They want that adventure too, as well. There's a component of that, but a lot of it was, they thought it was the war. A lot of people think it's the war. So they got down to Mexico and they realized it wasn't. It was something else that predated that. So that's what a lot of people, that's the misconception out there. And also with those group of guys, SEALs, and to be specific, DamNet guys, they have a different mindset than your average civilian. So medicine isn't a silver bullet. You got to have kind of a mindset going into it, and it's already built in with the guy who's been in 20 years, 10 years, multiple tours, so on and so forth. So that's why you see such a high success rate with it. These modalities is because these guys have already had their rite of passage as a man. They've done their tests, and the medicine just puts them back in the saddle, heals them mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever's happening to them, and puts them back in the saddle. And I mention this because you fast forward to today, 2026, it's becoming more mainstream, so on and so forth. And some people are like, wow, the success rates aren't there, whatever. I sent somebody down to Mexico and they came back and nothing happened or what have you. And I was like, well, they don't have the mindset. It's more than just the medicine. It's the whole enchilada. Psychedelics are just a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. And a lot of these guys, as a man, in every culture, there used to be a rite of passage. And right now we've kind of gotten away from that. We just discussed that about the wage cage and everything. So you have all these guys walking around there who haven't been through a rite of passage, haven't done anything hard, haven't been shot at, it's not even just that military, but it's going through and, you got your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, or you have some type of hardship out there where you walked a trail for 500 miles and you didn't quit. You don't have those rites of passage anymore. So these guys that were going down to Mexico in 2018 and the early 2020s and stuff, SEALs, Rangers, multiple deployments, they already had the mindset there. They've already been through a rite of passage. The medicine helped complement who they are and kind of dust them off to get them back in the saddle. Now you have civilians, medicine will help them, but they're still insecure. And part of that is they haven't had that rite of passage as a man. And when you're like, hey man, you got to stop drinking booze. Yeah, you just went down to Mexico, did ibogaine, all that stuff, but you have to, part of the integration process, you have to stop the alcohol. You got to stop, maybe dogging out on your wife or doing whatever. These civilians, a lot of them can't do it because it takes some intestinal fortitude. It sucks. We call it a lot of people say it's kind of cliche, doing the work. You're doing the work because you go down to Mexico, you have this life-changing experience, and part of the integration is you have to change. You got to sharpen the blade, become better, and part of that is ditching the booze, ditching the drugs, being a good dad, a good father, not going to the bar to escape your problems. Because a lot of these things, especially when it comes to civilians and some of these veterans, The bar is just an escape route. Escape artists hang out at
Yeah.
the bar instead of, hey, I got to
Yeah.
man up and do something for the family or do something I don't want to do. It could be down to like fixing the horse barn or something, whatever. You have these responsibilities. I'm going to go to the bar and get plastered. So you see a lot of these people, the bar is their escape route to escape their
Mm.
problems. And that's where you're also seeing a renaissance in terms of a lot of these veterans going down to Mexico or whatever doing medicine, they're not drinking alcohol anymore. And
Yeah.
not only do you see it with them, but you see it with Generation Z. Generation Z doesn't drink alcohol. Part of that, they saw what it did to their parents, how it just the marriages, stuff like that. So just to come back to the veterans going down there, it's the integration process coming out of their experiences. Now you have to do your work, and where these 2017, 18, 19, 20 guys, when they were going down to Mexico, you're dealing with CAG and Dam Neck and Rangers with multiple deployments and stuff like that. When you tell them, hey, you got to start drinking alcohol, here's your mission statement. Stop drinking alcohol. You got to eat better. You got to get outside more. Roger that. They received. But when you start throwing
Mhm.
into the mix civilians that, I mean, some of them couldn't even make it through basic training. I mean, they're soft as cotton and they're built like a ketchup
Yeah.
packet. You know what I mean? You got to get them back to like eating real food. Like I've had
Yeah.
some guys, I'd be like, all right, I need you to eat real food. Like, what did you eat today? They'll be like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, I watched you. You ate a piece of pizza. Okay. Pizza's not food. Okay, dude. You need meat. You need eggs. You need like
Yep.
real stuff, not a bunch
You
of
need water.
carbs and just pasta
Yep.
slop. You need water. These civilians don't even
Yeah.
drink water
Water's
anymore, some
super
of them.
important.
And
Mhm.
yeah, we've been doing it for millions of years. That's what we need to live. But and again, that's why I emphasize this. People are saying these success rates. Well, of course, you got these special ops veterans, you give them a mission statement and they execute. Whereas
Yeah.
now it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. And this is kind of the cautionary tale. A lot of these civilians need a rite of passage as a man. And it doesn't have to be military. It could be like, hey, man, I'm doing an ultra marathon where I got to run 100 miles. I got to suck it up. Or I got to hike across the Andes. You got to have that
Mhm.
gut check and that rite of passage as a man. You're an MMA fighter. I see that same energy in special ops veterans and MMA fighters too. They're serious people.
Yep.
They know if a bad day at the office, it's going to be life changing. So they better tighten it
Mhm.
up and take it serious.
I also think in the military too is you have the accountability from your peers, like
Yeah.
this is where in like
That's
the
a big deal
civilian
too.
realm, like you if you had somebody who's went through this in your field, they're going to be there to have your back and push you to do it, and they're going to push you until they can't push you anymore. In the civilian field, you're lucky if you got a family member or a friend who's not going to cut those ties and stuff. So I think having that, and I also think like within that like mental, you're talking about the avoiding thing, and I think like a lot of times mental health problems show either an anxiety, like where you're anxious and you're looking too much, or avoiding it, and both of those things like work totally different, where the person who avoids it just sits there and builds it, then the person who anxious is more the person who's anxious is going to be the guy who freaks out and punches a dude in the face because he can't control his emotion, where the person who is avoidant is going to go get blacked out drunk every night and hide it until he slowly kills himself. You know,
Yeah.
and both of those are huge problems. And identifying who you are when you're getting this help is a big realm of that too. Like what do you what's your problem? Are you go hide in the corner in the dark corner and drink, or you go loud and fight somebody in a bar, figuring out who you are and identifying that and moving forward. And like you said, stop going to the bar, quit being an asshole to your wife. And I think civilians, like, I think some of it is wired, but as a society, we're just softer. We don't have it's the everyone
I
gets a
agree.
trophy. Like, yeah, we became a society that says, like, I'm going to tell you my problems. I want you to work around them instead of saying, like, these are my problems. I can't let them become other people's problems. We say, like, this is my problem. Can you please not trigger me? When it's like
Yeah.
instead we should be working on that trigger so it's not a trigger. In society, we have fallen off that.
Yeah. No, it's like you said, you go the other side of the spectrum where guys are insecure and they want to prove themselves and they're just a loose cannon.
Right.
They can't they do something stupid. And I know guys like this, even military guys, they're liabilities. Like I can't hang out with them because they'll do something stupid. It's like they'll put you in jail, guilty by association. I mean, I got
Yeah.
one of those guys now we've all had to cut ties with because he's just a moron. He's a man child and he's about to be 40 and he still does stupid stuff. And I had to tell one of my buddies, like, listen, if you want to babysit this guy the rest of your life, have at it. But I'm not. I'm not going to have the feds knocking at my door because he did something stupid. He's been given multiple lifelines, multiple warnings. He's not listening. He's not listening to his tribe. And now the tribe has cast him out because he doesn't listen. And he's a
Yeah.
liability to
Yeah.
his group, his tribe. And that's the thing too. It comes back to, and I tell people, not only is it psychedelics, and I hope I'm not bouncing around, but it's also community is the medicine, nature is the medicine. It's all, those are
Mhm.
all pieces of the puzzle. You're a pack animal, you're a human. You need other people. You got to survive with other people. And if you have
Yeah.
somebody in your tribe that is a major liability because they can't control themselves, now you brought a bunch of heat on everybody, even after they've warned you, given you multiple lifelines. And now you're just, maybe you're a narcissist, you'll burn the house down. Well, that's fine, but we're not going to be around to catch you anymore. So it comes
Yeah.
down to community. And that comes down to 2017, 2018, when those damn net guys were going down to Mexico. It was it worked, and what did they do? They told all their buddies about it. They passed it around like, "Hey, go down to Mexico, do some work," because they're like, "This works, go do it." And it's not a silver bullet, but it's worked. It's the actions speak louder than words, and they passed it out to their tribe, which I tell everybody, SEALs have the best network. And this is coming from a guy, Ranger bat, contractor, yada yada. They do. They look after each other better than anybody else out there. And you have other communities that do the same. I think like it feels like the recon community, they really look out after each other. But they've,
Yeah.
as
The
an
Force Recon guys are
organization,
tight. Force
yeah,
Recon guys are super
as an
tight.
organization,
Mhm.
yeah, super tight. But and I tell people, why is that? Because the SEAL community had their rite of passage in Vietnam, recon, Vietnam, Ranger Bat, GWAT. We're new kids to the block. GWAT was kind of our rite of passage as an organization. So these other recon and SEALs, they've got 40 years on us when it comes to tribing up. And
Yeah.
Ranger Bat's trying to learn where things are. I mean, it's always been a loose affiliation since Vietnam, but GWAT was as an organization, that is their first rite of passage. That is their Vietnam.
Mhm.
And so the SEALs went down to Mexico and they passed it back. They kicked it back. Hey, this is the hookup. This is good. And that's what you're supposed to do. Guys who are kind of liabilities, they let them know this guy's a liability. He's probably not good for Mexico. So because they're honest with themselves, and it's ruthless self reflection, ruthless self awareness, and
Yeah.
part of doing medicine too. It enhances Toad, 5-MeO DMT, specifically enhances your self reflection, your self awareness. But you're able to read people better, read the room better because you're more connected to your spirit, your soul. And that's why coming out of Mexico, a lot of guys they dump the alcohol because they realize it's poison. It's killed too many of their friends. And they
Yeah.
realize, wow, they get more into nature because they feel more connected to nature now. It's not even about hunting, going out to get the kill. It's they want the meat. They want to eat something
Mhm.
healthy because after COVID, nobody trusts the experts. That's over with. And everybody's becoming more self sufficient, self reliant. And a lot of these military guys also took the COVID shot and they're sick from it too. And these are guys who are salty in the game, 20-year SEALs, and they're on a soapbox now talking about it. They don't trust their doctors. They don't trust any of that stuff. So they're seeking out other modalities. And again, that's where the psychedelics come in because, yeah, I listen to my doctor and now I have cardiovascular issues the rest of my life and I have migraines. And I know these guys. And these aren't guys
Yeah.
making it up. And so,
Mhm.
and this is down to tier 1 guys. So now they're seeking out these modalities, going to Peru, sitting with medicine men, stuff like that. And they're like, what do I got to lose? I go down to Peru, sit with the medicine man down in Peru, and I can connect y'all with some of my network down there too. Y'all can interview one of the guys down there who helps out with that.
That'd be
But
fantastic. Yeah.
they have treatments for trying to help guys out who have COVID vaccine injuries and stuff like that. And it's not just psychedelics. It's nature, it's other plants to help out with that. So people are it's a renaissance in terms of returning to nature. And
Mhm.
this is like a gift from God, and it's been kind of withheld from us. And now people are again returning. And it's not just the psychedelics, going outside and looking at the sun, being in the sun, eating up that vitamin D. You need that. You're a
Yep.
human, you need vitamin D. Example, I worked in New York doing EP, executive protection. I worked for a Forbes billionaire at one time. And what I noticed in New York, everybody's angry. They're like trolls. You walk off in the middle of Park Avenue in Manhattan, you don't even know where the sun is, middle of the day, because it's through the skyscrapers. You don't even get
Yeah.
sunlight in the middle of the street. And you notice, why are New Yorkers so angry and so dark? They don't get, and they're pale. They don't get vitamin D. And so it creates this neurotic behavior. They're angry, vindictive, because when we'd have to travel to LA, I'd be like, man, these people are happy. But I noticed they're tan, they're in shape. Now, mentally, your average New Yorker finance guy will eat a LA guy alive, destroy him mentally, because they're just dark
Uh-huh.
people and they're angry. They take it to
Yeah.
another level you can never conceive, right? And
Mhm.
but the part of that is they're not in the sunlight. A plant needs sunlight to grow. A human is no different. But again, not to go off on a tangent, these guys going down to Mexico doing these modalities, it's being connected to nature and kind of dusting them off. And now a lot of these guys coming out of Mexico in those early years, tier 1 guys, one thing they do better than anybody else, they execute. Hey, you need to eat broken
Yeah.
glass to get better. Done. No question.
100%.
So
Mhm.
So you tell these guys, hey, man, I need you to go be out in nature. I need you to stop drinking. Uh, and a lot of them get into hunting. Not for the kill, but they want to get organic meat. I got some of these guys, they're water prudes. They don't even drink water out of the faucet or any of that stuff now. They don't, because they just don't trust it. They've been poisoned for 20 years. So they're finding
Yep.
spring water, doing stuff like that. They're getting into jujitsu with their kids to hang out with their kids. They're realizing what's important. Is it the money, deploying, contracting overseas, or staying with my family, being with my family? And they're like, that's what makes me happy. And I don't want to see my daughter swinging around a pole because daddy wasn't there to protect her and watch out. Because
Yeah.
if you're not there to fill the void, some scumbag will. Some scumbag will take your spot, will be daddy. If it's not some pimp or some scumbag at high school or what have you. So guys are realizing what's really important, and it's God, family, nature, and they're returning back to nature. They're homesteading more, buying land, moving to the mountains, and again, part of that self awareness. They're notice, hey, something's wrong here. Like how we're living, the cities are a cesspool in America, dangerous, and just nobody wants to live there. Corrupt. So they're returning back to the land to live and live in somewhat, it's going to go back to community living, like tribalism is what it's going to go back to.
Mhm.
And there's actually a good book for people to read. It's called The Sovereign Individual. And it's extremely popular in entrepreneurship circles, and The Sovereign Individual is about decentralization. Essentially, that's what it's about. And it's written in 1999, and it predicted cryptocurrency, AI, and the next part and all their predictions have come to pass. That's why it's so popular for entrepreneurs and just people in general. The next one is the death of the city state. The death of the city is because as technology permeates through every sector of society, why do you need to live in the city when you have a Starlink? You make your Wi-Fi money, you do your
Right.
podcast. You don't need to live in the city anymore. So that tax base is going to move out. It's going to collapse because of social infrastructure of all the entitlements. And you're going to notice people not only leaving the US or leaving the cities, but also the US. I mean, you can live in Japan. Houses are cheap. They're like 20,000 out there. And people are looking at that.
Yeah.
Expats moving to Thailand. There's like a VA in Thailand
Thailand and
now.
Peru. I
And
remember guys going to
yeah,
Peru too. Mhm.
yeah. So it's this decentralization. And at the end of the day, what is nature? Decentralization. Anywhere on the planet to get vitamin D, all you got to do is walk outside, close your eyes, and have your third eye eat up that vitamin D.
There's some
Decentralization.
Yeah.
there's some real stuff going on in Spain right now too, where they're like having decentralized counties where they're removing themselves from like a federal level and doing like their own food systems, their own farming. So like getting rid of the main meat packer, stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
they're some of them are getting some weird kickback from conservatives because they seem like this big, like they're smaller social movements, you know, because socialism under a community is a great structure. Socialism under a huge group of people is a lot harder to do. I think in your house, you want to have you're more social in a house and a community than you are in a city, you know, and having the community where you have a farm and everybody's putting into that. And, you know, like they're doing some of that in Spain where they're removing the big government from it, you
Well,
know,
it's
but it
return to,
Yeah.
takes a
yeah.
group.
Yeah.
It
It's
takes a
return to
group of the
localism.
people. Yeah, exactly. Localism, you know, we killed that in America, you know, just with like where me and Ty grew up. It was, it got its roots from being one of the lettuce capitals of the world. We could farm, that whole community could farm, feed itself with the cattle, the stuff we could grow there where we wouldn't need a store. But at somewhere along the way, we decided that we need to ship our beef to the packing plant before they come straight to you know, and it's just like that all around America and going back to
Yeah.
localization.
Yeah. I mean, well, part of it, yeah, it's the localism aspect of where everything kind of started off. It's like you can only trust the guy to the left and right of you. Then it gets out of your, it goes back to the accountability culture, the team room type culture. Like you can't do it all. So barter society. Oh, you got beef. I got chickens. I want raw milk. I mean, in the U.S., you can't even buy raw milk.
Right.
A lot of these
Yep.
places, and that's one of the best things you can drink, especially as a kid, is raw milk. And not to go
It's going to
again,
help your
go
gut
off
biome
this,
a lot.
but it,
That's for sure.
yeah, oh, 100%, 100% IQ level, all that stuff. So going back down to
Mhm.
Mexico with like psychedelics has kind of spurred that questioning, to be incredulous, question everything in terms of the big government, all this big media. Look what y'all are doing, podcasting. What is that? Decentralization.
Yep.
You're destroying
Mhm.
this establishment media model, and it's coming back to localism because there used to just be like, I mean, if you lived in the 70s, you had 3 TV channels. That was it. That's what everybody listened to all over. Now it's spreading everywhere. Again, going back to that book, The Sovereign Individual. Y'all might be like, you know what? We're going to move to Vietnam and live out there and podcast, live off whatever. Maybe we get some
Yeah.
merch. It doesn't take that much. And it's safer to walk the streets in Saigon than it is Detroit, Chicago. I mean, it's all the cities are collapsing. And I'm not doom and gloom, but it's a natural effect of decentralization, which is what's happening right now. And part of that is going back
Yeah.
to why did guys go down to Mexico in 2017, 2018? Because they exhausted everything else. And they were like, and these were guys that were straight edge. They're not hippies. They're
Yeah.
like, hey, this will work. And it goes back to right now, you're finding a lot of people, and this is what's happening is these people aren't hippies doing psychedelics now. They're farmers, they're whatever. But part of it is it's more than just the psychedelics. It's the set and setting, it's the person facilitating, it's all that. And that is a responsible individual, medicine man, if you will. Like you go down to Peru. I've been down to Peru. I sit with a guy down there. He's like 4 feet tall or like 5 feet tall or something, very small. And he's a medicine man. He's down there. He sits in the jungle and he sits in his hut. You show up for a week, 2 weeks. He works on you. And it's just not doing ayahuasca. They ask you like, hey, what's plaguing you? What do you have? You have gut issues. You have ulcer colitis, whatever. And they go off in the jungle, get plants to help you out with that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how my dad was a pharmacist for 40 years. Pharmacy used to be compounding plants. That's what it was. Pharmacy school was a year. You compounded plants. You'd go into, it's like Andy Griffith. You go into the pharmacy, they get the plants, and that's what it was. And then Big Pharma came in and said, hey, that's like witch doctor stuff. We're using pills now. And so you're kind of, again, it's return to nature. But it comes back to, and that's why I preface it with, it's more than just the medicine. Who facilitates? They got to be a clean vessel. There can't be some scumbag. And set and setting. Going to a festival is not a good set and setting when you're blasted wide open because of multiple reasons. You're not protected mentally, physically, spiritually. Spiritually, you're wide open. Somebody has dark energy. Dark energy can enter you and mess you up. A. B. You have the ability to be raped in some of these settings. That's what's happened with some of
Yeah.
these women down in the jungle. They're raped because they go to a witch doctor, which they're real, and he manipulates them because your brain's peanut butter. And before you know it, a guy's on top of some lady. Now, if you're in Austin, Texas, you got to worry about a guy getting on top of you. So, like Colorado, which is kind of what I've heard through the grapevine. So you go to these places like Austin and Colorado, and the threat there is it's very sexual, which is a red flag for me because nearly all these women coming to psychedelics have been raped or molested. Fact of the matter. And I used to think, growing up in high school,
Interesting.
you'd be like, oh, Susie, invite her to the party. She's a whore. I'll hook up with her, whatever. Or like that floozy in high school, dude,
Right.
99% chance raped, horrific rape as a child, molested. And part of that
Yeah.
is sure her body is the vessel. And that vessel got her attention at 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 years old by a man. He raped her, and it's been imprinted on her. This is how I get attention. So she has that imprintation of how I get attention from a man, and that's to be a floozy. And so somebody like that, I look at differently now. It's like, wow, you need to go down to the jungle and get cleaned out, and you got something lurking down below. So you change your perspective. You have a perspective shift. And like I said, medicines, psychedelics, and it's a loaded gun in the wrong hands. If you don't know who's doing this, you can get into a lot of trouble. People that couldn't run a lemonade stand who are just screwed up their whole lives, they're running around with these medicines and they're creating problems everywhere, trying to be the guru, having
Well,
girlfriends and
well, and
stuff like that.
I really think too, from it's if you're doing it like in the realm of the group of people you're doing it with, because there's people, because I have two people who I get microdoses from who grow mushrooms himself, and one is an actual PhD psychiatrist who like takes time and does like what she mixes it with other cordyceps, so she'll do it with like lion's mane and other mushrooms, and the other one is more of a spiritualist, and he's just some long-haired hippie with two kids who's grown mushrooms his whole life, and he'll mix it with like cacao or other herbs to like if you want something that is lighter on your soul or your spirit, he'll put something with the psilocybin mushrooms, another herb or mushroom to do that, and I think it's really from if you're going to a guy who wants to go to raves and has a fucking pacifier around his neck and is like, yeah, I got a DMT pen for you, and like this is going to change your life, you're doing it the wrong way. If you're really on the journey of making your life better, especially when it comes to like DMT or ayahuasca, like that needs to be highly intentional, and like it needs, like you said, it needs to be with people, because that could make things, it could be very bad for you too if it's not with the right people as well.
Oh yeah, you can have a psychotic break,
Yeah.
with some of these people, and they're not doing proper intakes. If somebody's on happy pills, they can have a serotonin dump a few
Right.
days later and be suicidal. And that's the thing. It's getting kind of fast and loose out there right now, where it used to be is very intentional.
Yeah.
You're dealing with tier 1, tier 2 guys, very responsible. All these guys have had psych tests and everything else. Where now it's getting fast. And again, you go to like some of these places where it's getting fast and loose, Austin is a big one where, I mean, and I've heard through the grapevine, you have guys trying to hook up with you in the space, and it's like, yeah, I don't swing that way. We're not doing that type of stuff, and so the intentions matter and who you do it with, set and setting. And
Mhm.
again, I going down to the jungle, let's say Peru, you got to know who you go down there with down there too, because if it's not the right person, they're going to bleed your bank account, turn your brain into peanut butter and just bleed your bank account. And we've seen those guys in the early days. They go down to Costa
Mhm.
Rica and they put out it looked like a hostage video. And they go down to one of these communes in Costa Rica, get their brains melted, and they put out a hostage video asking for a GoFundMe, and somebody's off the side of the camera coaching them. So you got to be very careful who you sit with, who you go through. And that's one of the things now we're trying to like educate with, because there are those people out there who are malicious and use medicines to manipulate people, which we call witchcraft. They call it bruja medicine down south.
I think that's one of the reasons why when we talk about heroic hearts or these other foundations we brought up early, why they're so important. You know what I mean? You can kind of, you're right, because there's getting to be a lot more avenues now. And that's a good and a bad thing. Like you said, it's a double-edged sword. You got to know
Yeah.
it's difficult to know who you can trust. And so for me, it's you know, like going through guys like you, even talking to my wife, she's done a ton of research into psychedelic stuff. She did her whole PhD dissertation in psychology on it. She's helped a lot of guys kind of point them in the correct direction, right? To stay away from those outcomes
Yeah.
that you're talking about. And, you know, the connection part with us, I want to kind of go back a little bit. And I actually want to start talking about your journeys here a little bit too. But before that, a couple things. So the connection part is really, really important. And for us, you know, I said we do reunions pretty much every year. I was in 275
Yep.
and we all meet, believe it or not, like at my mom's house in Montana because there's a ton of space. She's got like 40 acres and we can put RVs and campers and the kids they just turn into Lord of the Flies in the trees in the mountains. We don't see them for days. I'm not kidding. They're out there building forts. And all of us are hanging around a campfire and it's like, we're there for 3 or 4 days, dude. And we don't want to, when everybody's ready to go back home, it's like you're going back to your 9 to 5. Like homeboy over there is an electrician, right? He's going to go be an
Yeah.
electrician again. You got this guy over here. He's a diesel mechanic. He's going to go diesel mechanic again, but it's all 9 to 5 stuff. A lot of it's trades, which they find, you know, they find more fulfillment in that. But when we leave the commune, so to speak, you know, my mom's house where we've been for 3 or 4 days, where the kids have been building forts and they run back in. Literally, there'll be like 20 of these kids. I'm not kidding. Like 10 to, you know, well, anywhere from like 6 to like 15 running back in from the trees to get food and then run back out to the trees. They'll stay the night out there. I mean, they have their own like hierarchy and everything. It's pretty cool. And everybody loves it. The kids love it. The grown-ups love it. Like when everybody goes back to their 9 to 5 and we leave after 3 or 4 days of hanging out like that and shooting the shit and having memories and sitting around the campfire and staring up at the stars. And nobody wants to go home. Nobody wants to go home. Like everybody wants to stay there.
Because
And
you are
every
home.
single time, yeah, every single year that we do this, it's like it's pulling teeth to get guys out of there because it's like nobody wants to go back to their life. Everybody wants that tribal connection. And then also really quick the set and setting. I got a buddy that goes to these things and we're all kind of trying to help him out right now. He's been screwing up a little bit. And good guy though, really good guy. And initially, when he started talking about wanting to dabble in I had talked to him about psychedelics kind of off and on, and then he kind of had the whole rock bottom thing. I think is important. You know, we were talking a little bit before about like how you know, and like the guy that you had to cast out of your tribe. You know, you were talking about the guy that you couldn't hang around anymore, right? And it's like
Yeah.
some guys they have to hit rock bottom, bro. They have to.
Yep.
Because if they don't hit rock bottom, what they're gonna continue to do is be like, "What do I need to do to stay even? I'm just gonna keep staying even, whatever it takes with my kids, with my wife, with my job, with myself." And it's not about them. And this guy, he's kinda lost everything now. He kinda has.
Hmm.
And losing everything, bro, is a feeling that kind of rock bottom feeling. That's suck start your pistol territory. Suck start your pistol territory for sure. And initially this guy, it was all about, how do I get my wife back? Is she okay with me doing this treatment? You know, everything was about other members of the family. And we were talking to him and we're like, bro, until this is about you, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't worry about how your wife feels about this. You can't worry about how, whether or not doing all this other, like, you have to, whatever it is that you do, whether, like you said, rocking the Appalachian Trail for 200 miles or going down to Peru and doing ayahuasca or going and doing heroic hearts with psilocybin or something. It's like those outcomes need to be for you, not for anybody else.
Yeah.
They will, by default, benefit those other realms of your life. But if you don't do it for you, you're not doing it for the right reasons and you're not going to get the right outcomes. You know what I mean? That was really important to get that across to him. And so,
Oh, 100%.
I wanted to,
and honestly,
yeah, go ahead, bud.
with medicine, the best they get out of medicine doing psychedelics, they kind of have to hit rock bottom. That's when you get the biggest transformation, is when they hit rock bottom. Because then it's like they're all in. If I don't do this, I'm probably going to blow my brains out.
Well,
It's like, awesome.
and I think when you're at rock bottom, that's the beginning of that ego death, like that's when you realize that ego that you've been carrying around has done nothing but send you to the bottom. So having that, like, going into that with the beginning of a ego death and like letting go of some of that stuff is really big too.
Yeah. I mean, because then they realize, wow, maybe I am the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what they have to come to, that realization. I am the problem. Okay, I need to go down to Mexico and kind of have my come to Jesus meeting and just be like, look myself in the mirror and be like, all right, here it is. Because especially the bar people, the beer and barbecue people, those are the escape artists. They just want to drink their way, be obnoxious. They don't want to deal with their problems. They want to kick the can down the road. And I will say, caveat, all that, one thing medicine is kind of known in the game is it doesn't cure narcissism. You give medicine to a narcissist, you turn them into a god. And that's where you see some of them, they come out of medicine. It's just, dude, it doesn't work. Now they're just like, they think they are like this guru and all this stuff. I am the medicine. And so they go down this road. So you got to be careful. Because I look at some people and I'm like, dude, medicine's not going to do anything for this guy. He's a narcissist. He torches every bridge. He does everything. And it's just not, because at the end of the day, it's not infinite, this medicine supply. You look at iboga, good iboga is a 20-year grow. And then you look at cactus, wachuma, you're looking at like anywhere from a 2 to 3 year grow. And then you look at toad, there's only so many toads.
Interesting.
So it's like, am I going to waste medicine on this guy knowing nothing's going to happen because he's a narcissist? Now, granted, there are not that many out there comparatively, but you have to evaluate these people and see where they're at. And if they're thinking, hey, I'm going to a party, I'm about to do some psychedelics, like, dude, no, you're not. You're about to, you might have your head in a bucket, puking your guts out. It's not going to be a party, and we're not here to party. We're here to do the work. And that's the difference between an adult and.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good. That's good stuff, because doing the work and all that kind of stuff is important. But I want to get into really quick I want to get into your psych and your personal experiences here before we get too much further.
Okay.
On this sucker, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I go off you have to rein me in every now and then. So.
Oh, no. This is good. This is good stuff. I just don't want to push it out too much further. Yeah. Because I think it's important. It's super important for us to really start talking about, I think, your individual experience, because there's a lot of guys out there that are, this stuff is scary, bro. Right? When it's your first, guys will talk a big game for sure, but it's really important, because this stuff, like, you don't know what you're going to encounter, and you completely lose control, right? Like, in being former operators, we're big into controlling the situation, controlling the room, controlling the mission, controlling the outcomes. And it's losing that control basically entirely is a very difficult thing that's a difficult threshold for dudes to cross. And so, can you take us in, if you don't mind, let's go into the actual ceremonies. I want to start talking about the ceremonies themselves and like
Yeah.
the experiences a little bit. So, can you take us into your first ceremony, without naming the center or the country, to anything to kind of
Yeah.
out you,
It was,
the room, the
yeah,
light, who's
I can
running
do
it, and
that.
what
I
it
mean,
was
I can,
like?
yeah. Yeah. So full disclosure, I was in New York working, and I had some kids, not kid, I would say some people from Yale. They were like, I just knew through the grapevine. They're like, listen, they're doing something for veterans down in Mexico. They're doing like mushrooms or MDMA or something like that. I'm like, okay. And again, I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything. I'm sober as a Mormon. And
Hmm.
I was like, well, it sounds like they're doing drugs. So I sent them, but out of respect, I'll investigate what's going on down there. And this was 2018. So I sent a couple of
Okay.
buddies down to Mexico. One of them was a ranger, had eat the damn sniper, contractor, Stanford law grad, so a legit guy. And I sent them down. They came back and like, man, it's amazing. You got to do it. And I was like, well, what happened? We can't tell you, but you just got to do it. I was like, okay. Well, eventually, I was coming out of SHOT Show January 2019, and I went down there to kind of investigate it myself because it sounded like a scam, but I couldn't put my finger on the scam because when you're living in New York City, Manhattan, belly of the beast, doing EP, security, everything, the thing about New York, you realize the whole thing's a scam. The whole system, like what's created in New York? Nothing. Nothing's created in New York. They're not farmers. There's not
Fake
oil. There's
money.
none of that. They're
Just yeah,
brokers,
just fake
just
currency.
middlemen. Yep.
Mhm.
Financial capital of
Full
the
metal.
world. Yeah. It's financial capital of the world. The printer goes fur. You just print. So I went down there and I did it, and I did Toad, and I had before going in there, I had depression and severe migraines, and it went away like a week later. All that, and off of one sitting, and it was
Hmm.
a hard reset. It's like powering down the computer. It comes back on. You're just reboot. And I let that process for a couple months. Then I went and did ayahuasca down in Peru, and then I did well, no, no, no. I did the full thing. Ibogaine. It was through Mission Within, Ibogaine, and then
Okay.
Toad, early 2019. Before I was pre-vets, and um, and then like a month and a half later, I did went down to Peru, did ayahuasca, and it was kind of boom, boom, boom. And this is coming from somebody who'd never drank out, never been drunk. I didn't drink alcohol, never did drugs, never smoked marijuana. First time they set me down for Toad, I had to tell them like, I don't know how to smoke. Y'all have to like tell me how to smoke something. And I smoked Toad. This first thing I ever smoked. And so when I mention that, I'm not some psychonaut just
Can you tell the
chasing
audience what
the
toad
next
is?
high.
Do you mind just explaining what you
Toad
mean by
5-MeO
toad?
DMT.
Okay.
Yeah, 5-MeO DMT, Bufo alvarius is like the scientific
Okay.
name. And from the Sonora bullfrog, I mean, everybody can look it up. They know what it is, especially that documentary on Netflix, Waves and Wars, going viral now. So I smoked 5-MeO DMT, organic. Everything I've done has been organic. It's not synthetic. Um, and I say that because synthetic just doesn't have a spirit. You want to do organic because some of your problems are spiritual. And how are you
Mhm.
going to do something when there's no spirit? So and also when you get in the synthetic space, you deal with a lot of psychonauts, former drug addicts who found their new drug. We call them kind of like trip junkies. You know what I mean? So, so I did is organic Toad, and then I did the rest of the modalities and just kind of, yeah, I mean, I lost weight, because when I was in New York, my escape was kind of food a little bit. I mean, I wasn't obese or anything, but you know what I mean? You're just not firing on all cylinders. Everybody in New York's doing below alcohol. I was working with all these people, high net worth, and you're just seeing the belly of the beast, how just evil it is. And so I had severe depression, all that. So that helped clean me out. And because I had another SEAL who's doing EP up there, a buddy of mine, he told me about ayahuasca and stuff. And this was like 2018. I was like, man, all this stuff was coming into my focus at once, essentially calling me because I was in such a bad spot. I mean, I held it together. I just stuff it down, but I was like severely depressed and the migraines, everything. And after that early 2019, those experiences, all of the depression and all that stuff went away. However, as I kind of stayed in the space, I started to learn more and more about different stuff, different modalities, and going down to Peru. I'd go down to Peru every year, work with other medicines. I mean, I showed up to Peru one year and I had a staph infection on my leg. I went into the jungle. And when you're in the jungle, they tell you you can't use any, you got to be raw. You can't use any medications, ointments, or anything. I was like, hey, man, I got staph in my leg. I've had it for a month. Like, we're in the middle of the jungle. This thing's going to blow up quick. And
Right.
the guy's like, I mean, the guy didn't even speak English. He just looks at it and just blows it off. He's like, it'll be good." 2 days later, my staph infection was gone after he started working with me with medicines. And I'm out in the middle of the jungle and it's just mosquitoes, all the bacteria, and just went away in 2 days after having it for a month. And so
Man, it's
it's,
incredible.
it's a return to nature where a lot of these people, they're in their wage cage. They're not getting sunlight. They're not having real human interaction. I remember in New York, I was just going hard in New York. I was there for about 7 to 8 years, EP, college, all that stuff. And I was out in LA and I was walking through somebody's yard barefoot. And I was like, man, when's the last time I walked barefoot in the grass? It felt like years. And it's because the matrix is powerful. It sucks you in to where, oh my gosh, I'm going to quit this year, but I'm getting this awesome bonus. And then just before you know it, you're on happy pills, you're built like a ketchup packet, and you're watching the new Netflix special or whatever it is, and you're sucked in. And you haven't been out in nature, you haven't been on a hike in probably 10 years. So,
Yeah.
again, a lot for me is returning to nature, getting out there more, getting out of the city. And that's where you're seeing this resurgence because so many veterans have been down to Mexico now. They're kind of on that same track where they're return to nature. And so this whole movement that's decentralized is kind of return to nature now. They're talking about the psychedelics. Well, what is it? It's a plant. That's all it is. And that's why I tell people it's a plant or a poison or whatever from nature. You don't worship the creation, you worship God. And that's where another pitfall is. It's like I see these people worshiping these plants. It's like, hey man, it's a plant. It's a tool. It's a tool that
Yeah.
helps you out, gives you a reset, but you got to carry the ball down the field. At the end of the day, it comes back to you. It comes back to you
Mhm.
integrating, doing the work, and kind of finding what your calling is, what your flow is. And that is the trend I see is guys just kind of, if they do the work, going back to nature and being more with their family, being a better father, getting into hunting, farming, finding out what they're eating, and then when I started this journey, it's before COVID, and it's only accelerated after COVID because now COVID was kind of the bridge too far. People are just like, listen, I'm not living in a city and getting locked down again. So they're turning back into a kind of mountain man prepper mentality. I need to know
Mhm.
how to, run a trot line and shoot a buck and really prepare for winter. And we had a ice storm in January, and dude, people died where I was at because these old people were out in the woods and they didn't know how to shoot an email or call anybody, and they just froze to death. And people are getting back to that kind of prepper mentality. What happens if the lights go off? So sorry,
Yeah,
I
that's
go on a
definitely
train. You have
happening
to
a
rein
lot.
me in sometimes. So
No, you're good. You're good.
yeah.
Let me, if you don't mind, inside the journey. So I know
Yeah.
these things are hard to explain, man. They're really freaking hard to explain how
Yes.
these but there are
Yeah.
interesting connections where it seems like, especially with certain psychedelics, whether it's DMT.
Yes.
It seems like a lot of guys see the same things, and that same thing with like ayahuasca. It seems like there seems to be a connected experience somehow. Can you take us inside of
Yeah.
your journey at all and just what you saw and experienced and how it made you
Yeah.
feel in the moment and maybe right after?
Yeah. So ibogaine, iboga. Ibogaine's the extract, iboga is the full bark. Either one doesn't matter for me. Those are very visual for me. And they kind of take you on a journey. And it's high definition 4D. For example, one time I went through and it kind of took me to some of these experiences in Iraq where I was nearly killed. And it's just like, hey, we're watching out for you. and just kind of
Hmm.
protecting you. And then it just kind of described why I got kicked out of the military, why, it wasn't my fault. It was just how things needed to be to get me out of the military. I had to get injured, maimed to get out of the military, and describe that whole sequence over about 30 hours. I was inside that medicine. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so just you're on a journey, and I was on a journey very physical for 30 hours. And it's just walking me through from childhood all the way through my experiences in the military to today, past, present, future. Kind of, this is what, you need to be doing and stuff like that. And in the past, it took me to when I was a little kid and experiences when I was a little kid and stuff like that. And just going through stuff. And when it all started, they give you a capsule for ibogaine, give you a capsule. And then 30 minutes later, they give you another capsule. And I was in a room with a guy to the next to me, and he started purging, just guttural. And I was like, man, what is this? It sounded bad. I was like, oh man, this is going to be horrific. Great. What did I sign up for? And then this voice came out of the blue and just was like, "Oh, your friend's not doing good over there, is he?" And I was like, "Oh man, he sounds horrible." And it's like the voice is just like, "Don't worry, you're good. You're gonna be all right." I was like, "Okay." And so for 30 hours, I never purged or anything. Where this guy next to me is just puking his guts up, and it just kind of guided me through the medicine. And probably halfway through, my stomach started hurting. I was like, "Oh my gosh, my stomach's killing me." I was like, man, am I going to throw up? And the voice like, talk to your stomach, see if you are. And I was like, okay. So I had a coach before all this who'd kind of told me the questions to ask. And it's like, hey, just ask questions of whatever. So I talked to my stomach, and it was like, hey, am I going to purge, throw up? And it goes, no, you need to go eat. You're hungry. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I was like, well, if I eat, are you going to throw it back up? And my stomach shrugged. It was like, it's weird to explain. It's like explain how peanut butter tastes, but it's like, it just like shrugged its shoulders, my stomach, if it had shoulders, but it's just like, I don't know. We'll see if we throw up. I was like, okay. So I go upstairs, eat some food, go back downstairs, close my eyes, go back, and I talk to my stomach. It's like, hey, are you good? And it just, it just had a big smile and just said, mm-hmm. Just like gave me like a thumbs up. And dude, I didn't have any issues the rest of the time. 12 hours, I didn't throw up or anything. So
Huh.
it's that interaction. But at the same time, I say that everybody's experience is different. You can't chase anybody else's. Because some people do ibogaine, nothing happens. They're like, nothing happened. I just saw a couple things and that was it. I have very visual experiences where they talk to me. And it may come into you as like a riddle, or a book appears in front of you and the pages start moving, and it, filtering through the pages, and then the answers on the pages. It's kind of ibogaine. It has a sense of humor, and it's going to give you the answers, but you're going to have to work for them. And I know of a SEAL went down to Mexico. He didn't take the coaching serious. He didn't take the prep work serious. And so what he did, ibogaine, the medicine told him, was like, listen, you didn't really take this serious. Um, we really shouldn't work with you because you didn't take the process serious, but we're going to work with you anyway. And they gave him his experience. So it's that intelligent, that intellectual. So it knows all your
Hmm.
secrets. It knows everything that's happened to you, even in the subconscious. Because a lot of these people have been raped or whatever as a child, and it's been hidden. And part of that, they have to go through that. Sometimes you have to relive the rape to get over it. You see what I mean? You have to face that
Yeah.
fear. And for example, the floozy, the girl at the bar, who most of these girls at the bar have been raped, molested. That's why they're there. And um, they don't even know it. But if they do ibogaine, they might have to see it. They'll be like the third person watching it happen, and it's explaining to them why it happened. And that's why they're like this today. They're so unstable. They're such an addict because they're covering up a wound, an invisible wound they don't know about. So it is,
Uh,
for me, is an amazing experience. No issues. That's how it always is pretty much. But for other people who've had this severe trauma, sometimes they have to relive it. They have to look in the mirror. So, and
And
smoking
that's the part where
toad
it can get
is a
scary,
rock.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you tell a guy, like, listen, tier one, tier two guy, listen, you're gonna have to look in the mirror. Stuff's gonna come up. Just face your fears. For the most part, they're like done. Um, but you start dealing with guys who have never really done anything hard in their lives. I mean, getting out of bed is difficult for a lot of these American civilians. You know, you can barely get them into the gym. And you're like, hey, you got
Yeah.
to face your fears. Well, they're out right there. You know, they might run to another modality where they can play around in it and they can control it or something like that. And I mean, not to be judgmental or anything like that, but I notice a lot of people run in the mushroom space and play around in that space where
Hmm.
if you're doing toad or something like that, you're off to the races. You can't control that. You're in
Yeah.
it to win it and you're not in control. And that's where a lot of the
Can
fear
you
comes up
explain?
because you don't have that free
Yeah,
will.
for sure. Can you explain because it is different? Like DMT, I know I've never done DMT, but you talk about toad.
Yeah.
I've heard, I've talked to people that have, and it seems like it's a catapult, right? And can you explain? So the
Yeah.
first one was ibogaine. I understand that you were talking
Yes.
about, and then I'm not sure exactly all the different psychedelics you've taken, but can you kind of run through just what your personal, and obviously this is different for everybody, but there's a lot of people out there
Yes.
that are listening that are trying to make a decision. You know what I mean? They're trying to make a decision right now. And whether or not this helps, I don't know, because it is very individualistic. But can you kind of run through just your personal experiences on whether it's psilocybin or DMT or ayahuasca or what you just talked about with ibogaine, which we just went over? But
Yeah. So you mentioned DMT. There's DMT, then there's 5-MeO DMT, which is more powerful than DMT. 5-MeO DMT is toad, Bufo alvarius. DMT, most of the DMT in the US is synthetic. You got to be careful because since it's synthetic, you get a lot of former drug addicts, you get a lot of shady people in that space. And it's
mhm,
because they want to do the synthetics and organic's better than synthetic. It's just how it is. It's got a spirit. It's from nature. And organic DMT, it's hard to find because not many people can grow the plants. For example, Australia, they got DMT down there, the acacia plant, and they call it ayahuasca down in Australia. And so it's pretty prevalent down in Australia. The acacia tree, they get the bark and they smoke it. They do the extraction or whatever, and that's organic. And again, I stay in the organic space because there's less. It's just not as shady when it comes to the people, and because a lot of these people who are in the organic space, they have to grow their own medicine, which takes discipline, responsibility, all that stuff. It's like being a farmer. They're serious people. If you don't feed your cows, if you don't water your plants, they die. You don't eat. So there's skin in the game. So a lot of these people in organic space, they grow their own medicines. They have skin in the game. So it's a lot more responsibilities in there. They're built into it. And so
yeah,
DMT, it's for me more visual. It took me a while to learn how to navigate it, but it's more visual and you can kind of see, it'll start to talk to you and stuff like that and tell you about stuff, who you are, like what you need to work on as a human, stuff like that. Toad,
when
more
you say
powerful for me,
they,
not
what do
as
you
visual.
when you say they,
Well,
like if they're talking to you?
well, it's
Mhm.
like the medicine's talking to you is what I'll say. Like the
Okay,
plant spirit is talking to you. So and all these plants have a spirit and it's all like connected, but it'll just start talking to you, telling like, hey, you need to watch out for this. I've had it tell me one time, hey, you're drinking too many smoothies. You know what I mean? Because you may not drink alcohol. You may not do some of these things, but you still have stuff to work on. You're always sharpening the blade, getting better and better and better. You see what I mean? You may eat too many cookies, too much
yeah.
sugar in your diet. You see what I mean? So it's no matter, let's say you kick the booze, you kick drugs or stop, you're always getting better and better and better. Um, and also stuff to watch out for. Hey, your friend over here, he's not your friend. He's just mooching off of you because some people, that's the thing. A lot of people that do medicine, these modalities, and they realize like their friends, they thought they were friends for 20 years, aren't their friends. There's an energy vampire bleeding them. because they're always calling you, hey, I'm in trouble. Hey, I need help with this. And they're just bleeding you of your energy. And you need to learn how to cut those cords and get rid of them. And it may even be family. So, and again, not to sidetrack, but like DMT, organic, they also call it changa, or the analog of ayahuasca kind of. When you do that, modality 2 is kind of like the peak of an ayahuasca experience, where it's very visual and it comes in very fast. Toad, 5-MeO-DMT, is not as visual. It's a hard pattern interrupt, more powerful. And that you got to be very careful with, because if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, you can get in a lot of trouble. You can choke on your own, throw up, or whatever. And that's why I say, if somebody's facilitating these medicines, you got to kind of question them, like, hey, if you're facilitating ayahuasca, have you been to the jungle to do a dieta? It's not about doing ayahuasca. It's about doing the dietas. The dieta it's a bigger experience where you're using other medicines to work with, and stuff like that. Like the guy I know who's training down in Peru right now, like he's been in the jungle for a long time, but when he was serious to start really getting in the game and training, he had to lock it down for 3 years. Certain foods, a dieta for 3 years. You can only eat certain foods. No sex, no masturbation for 3 years. Stuff like that.
Wow.
You can only sit with this one facilitator. You only have one teacher. You see what I mean? There's like a rite of passage here. It's not, oh wow, this guy's cool. He's a shaman, and it's like, dude, this guy can run a lemonade stand, and he's running around with the loaded gun. So
Yeah.
seeing a lot of that in the underground and stuff, but you see these guys who are legit facilitators, legit guys, and they just have a different energy, a different presence. Now, going back to 5-MeO-DMT, it's powerful. It's probably the most powerful thing you can smoke, but it's that hard pattern interrupt that you need for that reset to recalibrate your system. You just turn off the computer, you're turning it back on, mentally, physically, spiritually. And that toad spirit, since it's organic, this is the difference between organic, synthetic as well. The organic, that spirit's going to keep moving through your system, peeling back the layers for the next month, helping you out, elevating you, stuff like that. So, I mean, that's the modality and the safety kind of down and dirty of safety precautions of who's facilitating it. And I would say for people, there are trusted assets out there, but it's mostly in the veteran space, because the veterans, again, have this awareness about them. Danger, danger, danger. I'm walking into an ambush. So that's why a lot of the veteran space has kind of been pushing this through. A, it's an institution where it's the last thing people kind of respect. A, B, there's a self-awareness there, where if you mess up, you could die, or worse, be a paraplegic or quadriplegic, or be paralyzed the rest of your life. So there's a lot of skin in the game, per se. But yeah, that's when it comes to DMT and Toad, that's kind of the down and dirty of it. And then you got ayahuasca in the jungle, Peru, but it's not just the ayahuasca, it's the dieta. You're going into the jungle to be like, hey, this is what's wrong with me. This is what needs to be worked out. And part of that, you got to do a 2-week fast before, of no sex, no masturbation, no pork, none of that stuff. And then a month later, it's the same deal. No coffee, no pork, no red meat, no sex, no masturbation. It's the buy-in. And only serious people will follow this. That's why people are like, why is this not working on him? Well, he's not following the rules, man. There's rules everywhere. There's accountability. It's the work.
Yeah.
It's the integration. It's all that. And like you had to go back through a law enforcement flexi. You had to shut your mouth and take your medicine and go back through. Where a lot of guys, they won't do that. They'll be like, oh, I'm good. I'm going to live off what I did 20 years ago the rest of my life. It's like, hey, man, I go in the jungle. I'm just part of the crowd. I'm not going down there to be the guru or anything. I sit right there, and if I need to throw up in a bucket, I throw up in a bucket to clean me out. So,
Yeah. And I want to get into the integration stuff, the stuff that Joel was talking about kind of earlier on. But before I do, because I think that integration is, and you brought that up as something you wanted to talk about, and we've talked about it a little bit, I think, kind of off and on throughout this whole thing. But is there anything, I mean, just when it comes to like, so you've done, I kind of want to go over just what you specifically have, I guess, personal experience with. And so you have the toad DMT, which is the natural DMT, not the synthetic,
Yeah.
the ibogaine you were talking
Yep.
about,
Yeah.
and then what else have you dabbled in? And then can you explain it's so hard to explain the experience, but I think there are people out there that kind of want it
Yeah.
the inside behind the door. You talked about seeing a book opening in front of you and the pages turning, and you talked about experiencing yourself right as a child, which that I've heard about that a lot too, where you kind of talk to yourself as a child, help yourself, maybe help your inner child, almost like taking a step back into time, right? Figure out how
Yeah.
to push through that event to where it benefits you today as an adult. Is there is there any other experiences that you had in there that might have been profound, or entities you might have seen? Some people describe seeing elves or jokers or different things like that that have, or even snakes. I think ayahuasca, people talk about seeing snakes or a big snake. Is there any personal experiences you'd be willing to share in there, stuff that you saw or
Uh,
experienced in any of
yeah.
those
I mean,
journeys?
yeah. Like, Joe Rogan puts out a lot of stuff. I mean, I think he did medicine, like maybe DMT, like 15 years ago or something, but he still talks about it. And it's like, oh, it's jokers. It's just people get attached to this story, he says. And it's very few times people hear that stuff like, oh, there's jokers in there or whatever. It's just sometimes, yeah, you just have like this plant spirit come in and it talks to you like, hey, you need to tighten this up. You need to do this. But also part of that is when you're down in Peru, because ayahuasca has DMT inside of it too, that gives you that ethereal experience. But you have that medicine man down there protecting you to make sure there's no dark, just evil spirits coming in. Because demons are real.
Mhm.
And that's why you got to be careful. I go to
Yeah.
Africa, Africa's heavy witchcraft. Central South America, heavy witchcraft. And it's real, it's true. And everybody in the game knows it, and people bounce around it, but it's true. And so if you're dealing with a guy who's heavy in witchcraft, what he'll do is he won't protect you. He'll let that poison in. And he'll manipulate you and all that stuff as well. So it is kind of like in the jungle spiritual warfare because you do have good medicine men, you have guys in the witchcraft, you have all that stuff. And a lot of these people in the witchcraft are on social media. So you'll see them dressed up in white. Oh, come join our community, be one with us, blah blah. What they're going to do is they're going to bleed your bank account, and bang your wife, and probably take your wife, and she'll be some guru's concubine or something. That's usually how it goes. And again, I've seen it with some of these veterans. They go down to Costa Rica and they lose their wife to some guy down in Costa Rica. The point of doing medicine and getting better is that you don't want to lose your wife to some like rando in the jungle. So you go down to the jungle, it's a vetted network down there. You don't have to worry. I just had a female go to the jungle, sit in the jungle by herself with the medicine man down there. And, um, dude, he didn't try to rape her. He didn't try to do any of this stuff with her because he is what they call halabone, a clean vessel. He's working for God. He's a Christian down there. He's not trying to bang the chicks, which is very rare. It is actually very surprising. It's very rare. Um,
Huh.
So you have to be very careful who you sit with when you go off to some of these places. Again, I've seen some of these people walk into the traps where they blow up your ego and, hey, we're going to come save the world and do this, 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 and we're going to help out all these people and do this. Just okay. I need $50,000 to help do it. And you're out there in the U.S. collecting money from your friends and family to go to get hand over to some guy in the jungle. So it's we call that like an energy vampire. They're bleeding you. So
Mhm.
again, that's why you have to go through these vetted networks, know who you're dealing with. And if they do ayahuasca, especially in the States, I'll be like, "Hey, have you ever been to the jungle, do a dieta?" If they say no, that's a major red flag. So,
Uh,
and that's again, I bring this up because I'm seeing a lot of it's getting kind of crazy out there, and a lot of people don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they don't know. They just part of them being a narcissist is that they want to be the guru, and they just get some medicine off the dark web and they start facilitating, and which leads into a bunch of problems. And you see their worlds kind of collapse after a while because they're not clean people. They're not a hollow bone. They're not a clean vessel. And
uh-huh.
since they don't have spiritual protections, they fall to, get like two or three girlfriends. And before you know it, instead of Tiger King, you got Toad King out there probably one day on Netflix or something. So you have to be, again, comes down to set and setting. Be very careful. But for me, DMT, toad, ibogaine, iboga, and dieta, which ayahuasca is included in the dieta down in the jungle. But that's essential. I mean, I've done some mushrooms here and there. I'm not really a big mushroom guy. Microdosing are good for getting people off their happy pills because after 20 years of taking their happy pill and lobotomizing themselves, they're honestly used to that motion where they've imprinted themselves, rewired their brain. Even if nothing's in the happy pill, they're still used to that motion every morning of throwing it down the throat. You see what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
motion of, oh, I didn't have my happy pill today. It's going to be a bad day. Oh, it's going to be hell. Oh my gosh, I'm depressed. And they imprint on themselves. They manifest this experience on themselves. And so microdosing is really good with detoxing the humans off their happy pills, especially the people who live in their wage cage. They're all on medication, just a litany of medication, because they're not meant to live in a wage cage. They're meant to walk in the grass, be happy. And part of that is lobotomizing them to get in that wage cage to crank out a bunch of useless numbers in a spreadsheet that mean nothing. So, sorry, I kind of go off on tangents. I've been in the space a lot. I'm kind of throwing a
Oh
lot
no,
at
it's
you
I get
to
it, man.
kind of cover
I
everything.
get it. I want to take you back though. I do want to take you back.
Yeah.
So regarding personal experiences in the journey, just personal experiences in the
Yeah.
journey. Because so now you've set up a facility, right? You trust. We've talked about how important the trust is and making sure you're using the
Yeah.
right institution, whether
Yeah.
it's heroic hearts or something to that effect, or the shaman. Like if I've talked to you, I trust you.
Yeah.
You give me the information. I contact this dude. I trust him through you. So you're there.
Yeah.
We've checked that box. Now you're there. You're doing it. Can you explain at all your individual experiences inside of the trip itself? Or I don't even necessarily know if I want to
Yeah.
call it the trip, but just the experience.
The experience. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the first time I did ayahuasca, it was powerful, and uh, it was in Peru. I had a major breakthrough, like 15 minutes in, and I was just in the experience. They call it rebirthing, and essentially where it is, you're just like, it's hard to describe, but I was like a baby being reborn in this experience. And again, it's in the visual experience while you're in the jungle. And while you're in the jungle, you're hearing it's like a symphony out there because all the bugs and the animals and everything else are just singing. So those noises add to the medicine. They push the medicine to make it more powerful. We call it music moves the medicine. So in that experience, I mean, it was big. I was gone. I kind of started floating out of my body, and the medicine man had to like bring me back into my body. He guided me back because all I noticed, I started to float away. I could see everybody outside the hut, and he just like started calling me, and he started flashing a little light. And through that, I was able to like navigate back into my body, and then I was still in the experience, and it was just kind of taking me through everything, talking to me about like life, what I need to work on. Very visual, very nature heavy. Um, like I thought I was like in kind of it was like being in it was like kind of just being in the jungle in that experience. A lot of a lot of green, a lot of nature, and um just these just and I kind of had a guide in the experience too, like and just kind of talking to me about everything and just kind of educating me stuff to work on. And then it was like it was throwing me up. It's like, hey, we're purging you because you have a lot of toxins in the body. So we're getting rid of that out of your stomach. So and also doing that ayahuasca type stuff, I mean, you have a soul. And on that soul you have your meat suit, right? And sometimes you get a little bit dirty. So for, you gotta purge, and it's rooter to pooter's got to come out. You know what I mean? You got to purge it out. So you might have to. Very few times do people defecate, but usually they throw up out of their mouth. And what it is, you're extracting something dark energy, something spiritual that something's not paying rent. It's got to come out. Okay, and It just cleans you out. That's why people are like, oh, I threw up so much. Well, that's actually a good sign because you're ridding yourself of something bad in your body. And for me, when I threw up, I remember just looking at the bucket and it was just like a brown sludge. And it just told me it's just you had these toxins in your body. Because I remember when I was in New York, I would eat all this just really bad food. And I would drink these monsters all the time. These cafe monsters. I drink them because I was always drinking coffee. So I drink all these monsters all the time, and it's no telling the toxins I had in my stomach, with the gut biome and stuff like that. So it would purge me of that. And then, yeah, in the next few nights, it was just kind of starting off again where I left off. And I had my own kind of like guide within the experience, kind of taking me around, showing me stuff and kind of educating me on stuff. When sometimes some people see snakes and everything, or they see a snake, sometimes that means rebirth, the shedding of the skin too. And if people are going to become facilitators of the medicine, ayahuasca in the jungle, though sometimes the snake will eat them. And that what that means is it's like rebirth. They're it's kind of like a rite of passage. You see what I mean in the jungle? Or they'll be ripped apart by a jaguar and it's a horrible experience, but it's kind of like the rite of passage. Okay, you're going to learn how to start facilitating medicine, but you have to go through your rites of passage. You see what I mean? You got to earn it. So when some people, if they're learning how to be facilitators, they're either eaten by the snake or ripped up by the jaguar. But yeah, usually you see a snake and it means different things like rebirth, shedding of a skin, stuff like that too. So, because in the jungle, you have like the anaconda, is stuff like that. So, but for me, I was, it wasn't really too animal heavy. It's just in this like colorful experience and just kind of being, you kind of looking in the mirror and it's just telling me what all the stuff I needed to work on, how to get better, who to trust, get back with family, spend more time with your parents because you don't have that much time. You see what I mean? I've known some people, females, they straight up tell them, don't come back to the jungle, don't do any other medicine until you're done having kids. You need to go have a family. So that's what's missing out of your life. You need those kids. So does that
Yeah.
help out at all? It's hard to describe the experience.
Oh
I
yeah.
apologize for that. So if
Yeah.
it's see,
Yeah. The experiences are so individualistic and so difficult to describe. I mean, I've had a few experiences myself. I want to get to these other places. I haven't been able to participate in that yet, but I do talk to a lot of guys about this, and it's like you're saying. There does seem some experiences that seem to kind of cross border with each other in a way, I guess. And then there's a lot of really really individual experiences itself. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. And so let me. We talked about bad providers, and I think I kind of want to get back into what Joel wanted to bring up about half an hour ago, which is so you've had the experience, you've made the commitment, you went to the right place, the right facilitator, right? You had the outcome you were
hmm
looking for. It was profound, and now it's after. So we're after now. And this I think this is important,
yeah,
really important, is basically the question about how do you keep this going? Now, obviously this is something that you've done
yeah.
repeatedly. I don't know how often you do it, or if you have a schedule. Do you have a schedule you keep with this, or is
Mm.
this more of just a
No, I don't
feeling?
have a schedule. I mean, I haven't done ayahuasca or anything, and haven't been to the jungle out in Peru in over 2 years because of other things. I've had other work stuff and stuff like that, but it's been over 2 years, and it's kind of like when you feel called when you need it because you don't. Psychonauts kind of give it a bad name because they're always it's like they're chasing a high. What are they doing? And you kind of have to look at them and be like, hey man, what are you getting out of this experience? Because your life still looks like chaos and you're not supposed to be chaos. Now we call them organic junkies. They just keep going and going and going to where, hey man, you need a job. You got bills to pay. You need to like utilize this experience, benefit from it, learn from it, and take it out in the real world. And instead of trying to go back and escape, you're not gaining anything out of these experiences anymore. So we got to see progress. And progress is stability. It's not chaos energy. And yeah, it's one of those things where it's afterwards. I send a lot of guys to a lot of the veterans I deal with. I send them to a lot of veteran nonprofits that take them out in nature. One of those is Heroes to Horses in Montana. It's ran by a
Mhm.
SEAL up there, and he's been doing it probably going on 10 years, I think. And he takes guys out for 41 days out in the Montana wilderness. They learn how to ride horses. They do cold water plunges. They do all different types of stuff. And part of that, you're doing it with a community of men. So you're building your tribe. You're with horses, equine therapy. You're out in the elements.
Mhm.
You're doing cold water plunges, saunas. You're getting this holistic thing. You're building a practice, a daily practice to take back. And what is that daily practice? Do saunas every day, go to the gym every day, whatever it is to keep you busy, get you out of the bar, get you on the right path. I see Joel, I see archery. A lot of guys are getting into archery, even if it's not to kill anything. It gets them out into nature. They're breathing clean air, concentrating. They're with themselves. Because part of it is being present with yourself. No distractions,
Mhm.
like going up into the mountains, going to some of these places. You need the quiet, you need the peace to go inside and be with yourself. Going out to the bar or these festivals, all that stuff, you're just never going to get that. And it's also reevaluating your friend network. Is this guy really helping me or is he a scumbag? And that's where a lot of guys have issues with. They don't want to do it, but they have to kind of fire some of their friends and be like, listen, dude, we're over 40 and you're still acting like you're 20. I got wife and kids. You're a liability. I'm leveling up. You're not. You got to go. And I can't drag you across the finish line.
Yeah.
So like, a lot of guys end up cutting people out of their friend network. Um, but again, the good thing about some of these veteran nonprofits, they're not going down to Peru to MS. They're taking guys out in nature to do archery or, but again, that one, Horses to Heroes is really good when it comes to the holistic view of everything. And there's another one in Montana done by a Marsoc guy, Talon's Reach, where they take you out for like 5 days and they do a lot of that same stuff, but it's just not as intensive as the Heroes to Horses. So
I
it's
think
a
the
lifestyle
equine,
change, is what I'll get at.
yeah, and I think the equine stuff. So for me, man, there was a time. So my family's caretake. My dad was caretook ranches. We had an outfitting business. We bounced around a lot with caretaking various ranches and stuff. And they had moved to Montana when I was basically right before I joined the army. And I remember coming back off deployments, and I've been involved with horses my whole life, whether it was cowboying or outfitting or whatever it was. One of those two things. But man, I would come home off a trip, whether I was a contractor or in the military. And dude, the first thing I would do, man, is saddle up. I had a couple different steeds that I worked with and kind of broke myself that I would use when I was home. And I'd take my dog, Allie. She was a little border collie, little alley cat girl dog, as I called her. I'd get on my horse at the time, it was dirt, he was buckskin. And, during this whole process for like, probably 10 to 15 years almost. And dude, I had never, I mean, it helped, it recentered me so fast. You know what I mean? Like going from Fort Lewis, Washington,
Yeah.
outside of Dillon, Montana, and getting on a horse and getting in the backcountry for shit, man. I'd go back out there sometimes for a couple days, howl at the moon a little bit, just by myself, just me, my horse, and my dog. Me, my horse, and my dog. That's it, and that's all. And I'd spend a few days out there, man, and I'd come back and it was like it was almost like a psychedelic experience on its own without the psychedelic. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? It
I
was Jesus Christ, it was grounding. It just helped me out so much. There's been very few other things in my life that I've been able to turn to that were as therapeutic as that moment. And the hard thing is for a lot of guys, like I had to come up a certain kind of way to be able to do that. You know what I mean? You can't just, I'm gonna go buy some horses and fucking do this. Like I had a background for it. And a lot of guys don't have that opportunity. I was pretty blessed to have that opportunity when I came home. And I felt really bad for guys that were just coming home, like you said, going to New York City, right? And doing your thing there. And it's a whole different experience than being in the big hole in Dillon, Montana and being horseback for a few days in the backcountry after coming off a deployment. And that helped me out tremendously, a lot. I mean, that set and setting thing, And that would be something that, if I went down to South America, I reckon I feel like I'd want to come back here and I think almost immediately re-participate, be able to get back up in the backcountry and keep myself recentered, like you're talking about. That after experience, you can't just depend on that to save you forever. Like you kind of have to redabble in it, reinvest in it. And then in the meantime, in between dabbling and reinvesting, you got to be really intentional. You got to be really damn intentional about your outcomes and about who you are and what you're doing and what your damn purpose is here. And I think that helps a lot. Or coming up with a new mission, right? Like you said, you got to keep moving forward, man. You can't be living on this shit from 20 years ago. Like you got to keep pushing forward. What's the next best thing to do? I think that helps. I've seen that help out guys the most, more than antidepressants, obviously more than alcohol. Uh, that and then like kind of regenerating your experiences with your boys, like in reunions and stuff like what I was also talking about up in Montana with those reunions and how helpful those things are. Is there anything else you want to speak about when it comes to that, your personal reintegration process that you do maybe to in between trips or experiences? Because you're still operational too, man. Like you're still doing work, you're still deploying, you're still qualifying, you're still doing all this stuff that you're still in the game. And so, for you, I
Well,
assume
yeah.
this is something you got to stay on top of.
Yeah, I mean, it's you still have you can't use medicine to escape. I mean, Dakota Meyer just went back into the Marines. He's a Marine recon now. He went through school there, and he's a recon Marine now. And
Wow.
he has openly been on podcasts. He's done ibogaine, toad, these other modalities, and they let him back in the military, no questions asked, after doing these modalities in a responsible setting, though. And so people are starting to see you can still do your job and do these, but at the same time, you're more controlled with your energy. You're not chaos. You're more responsible. You're more surgical. You can still be dangerous. You know what I mean? But you're more, again, you're just more responsible about it, and you're more deliberate about your energy, and just a lot more mature. So, I mean,
Yeah.
with that being said, it's you know, but again, it comes back to your community and fine tuning your community as well. So, and you're going to have those
Yeah.
guys who they
And
go down to Mexico, they do stuff and they don't get better. And you know what? That's their decision. They want to still go to the beer and barbecue, but you know what? Loving neutrality. Hey, man, that's your journey. That's what you want to do. Still do the beer and barbecue. Not me, buddy. I'm going, we're at the fork in the road and I'm elevating and executing a life.
I love it, man. I love hearing that. And maybe to kind of close this out a little bit, kind of put a bow on it for, the whole reason we're doing this shit, we're having this conversation right now, for a brother out there right now, a brother or sister out there who's sitting in a dark room thinking about suck starting their pistol. They got pictures of all their kids and everything on the table, and they're in a real, real dark place and they're trying to make a decision on whether or not it's worth it. Is there anything that you want to tell those people right now if they're listening to this and they're trying to find something? Is there anything you want to kind of leave us with or leave them with, I should say?
Okay. Yeah, I would say it'd be a permanent solution to a temporary problem, is what somebody'd say. And I'd say for them, there's enough stuff out there, especially as these podcasts come up. I'll have one of my guys in Peru speak on your podcast. Go hit them up, contact them, and give it an opportunity to go down to Peru or go down to Mexico in one of these places and experience this and decide for yourself how it is. But right now, there is hope, and there are those lifelines out there to help out and those modalities to help out. It's not the Vietnam generation anymore where there is nothing else out there. You have modalities, you have a better support network than what the Vietnam vets have, much better. And so the cavalry's coming. It's also kind of here. So before you do that, make that decision, you got to think also, this is not only a decision that's going to affect kind of your friends, but also your family, especially if you got kids. Because now your kids are going to be like, well, I guess dad didn't love me. That's why he did this. And your kid's probably going to have to do medicine one day to fix that. And you don't want to create that trauma within your kid. So
Yeah.
I would say just there are those tools out there now to help with that. A and B, you kind of need to hit that rock bottom. That's part of your journey. That's your point of reference to kind of realize how bad things can get, but it's not over. That's your journey. Every man has a struggle, and part of life is struggling. And you kind of push the bark on the tree. And you need to realize that you're going to have those highs and lows, but you got to overcome it, A, because that's what defines you. And B, there are those tools such as psychedelics to help you out with that. And C, you got to start looking at your community and find your community. And it's not going to be at the bar. Going to church or going to a running club, stuff like that. Community is the medicine. And you have to reevaluate your community that you're with right now. Who's going to catch you when you fall?
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. I loved it. I appreciate that. Is there anything else at all that you want to say or anything before we sign off? Anything you kind of felt like we might have missed or that you want to add
No,
to the
I think I
conversation?
mean, no, I mean, I'll talk to my Peruvian network. I think they'll be cool to jump on if y'all want to have them on a podcast. And he'll tell
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
the ins and outs of everything and what to watch out for, stuff like that. And B, just as a veteran, I think we need to, like heroes to horses, plug those places where you can go to these other nonprofits that take you out into nature. Nature's the medicine too. And it's a lifestyle change. It's
Mhm.
just not going down to Mexico. That's the start. It's not the finish. This is a lifestyle change where you're just constantly sharpening the blade until you leave the meat suit. Joel, go
Yeah.
bust some bucks, buddy. Get us some meat.
Yeah, that's the plan, man. I got a buck tag, a bear tag, and an elk tag this year, so that's the goal.
Good.
That's the goal.
Good.
Shit, where you gonna be hunting out of?
Awesome.
I spend most of my
Where
time up in 15, but it all depends where the elk are. I mean, I have the over the counter for archery for elk, so I could go anywhere besides the trophy units essentially. And then with buck, I'm on 15, and the bear tag, I'm on 15. So
Yeah, it's good to have them all in the same spot. That's handy. That's helpful. I hate the Colorado
yeah,
elk
having them
hunts,
on
man. I
different
hate the
when you
first, second, third, fourth rifle shit. I hate it. Montana had it down, man, because you'd have like a 45-day period window. And they're just like, hey, you knock one over. Doesn't matter where the hell you had designated spots, obviously, but you had a lot bigger time frame. In Colorado, it's like you get like 5 days in first rifle. I think second rifle is the longest. It's about 14 days.
yeah.
And then you get third rifle, which is back to like a week, and then fourth, which they added years ago. They didn't have fourth rifle when I was a kid, but they added
Well, that's why
that. I tried to get that one.
I started doing
Hmm?
archery because I get the whole month to hunt, Like, and it
Yeah,
sucks because it's freaking hot outside, but I get the whole month to hunt, so
yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I got a bunch of kids, Robert, with hunter safety. I got 5 kids, man, and half of them got
Good.
hunter safety right now. And so we want between me, my wife,
Good.
2 kids I can get tags for. Eventually, it'll be 7 of us that'll be out stationed in very specific spots trying to fill tags,
You got a lot of mouths
setting
to
these
feed,
kids up
bro.
for
You got a lot
success.
of mouths to feed.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah!
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it's like you said, man. Taking
It's,
those kids out elk hunting, that's an experience of
yeah.
a lifetime for these kids, man. I bust their little asses going up these mountains, and because we're hunting public lands, we're not hunting private lands and shit. And so we're
Yeah.
out there, you got to bust it on public lands to get anything. And I'll tell you, it's an experience for these kids, dude. It's something that they'll never forget. It's wonderful. I love taking them out.
Yeah. Enjoy it. I mean, savor the moment. At least you're spending time with your kids. You could be contracting 9 months out of the year and they're like, where's daddy? Oh, he'll be here next year, and then you can't get those years back is what I'm saying.
It's true.
And,
Mhm.
and I mean, I was in New York. These people don't even know how to boil water. You know what I mean? When the lights go off, like, what are they going to do? And I saw that during COVID. And when COVID started,
Yeah.
there were like bread lines outside the pharmacy, like Walgreens and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, this is like the Great Depression. So,
It'd be like The
um,
Walking Dead
I talked to the old
if anything
heads.
happens.
Yeah, it really was. I could see it in their eyes. and especially like bread lines outside of like the Dwayne Reed and Walgreens. I was like, man, that's when everybody, if they had opportunity, they fled, went to the Hamptons. And
Right.
that's where everything that's essentialization is kind of, working remote and stuff like that's kind of accentuated. You don't need to come into the office as much. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So, all right, brother. Well, hey, I want you to know, dude, I mean, really, really, really appreciate this. And
okay.
with that, I want to say, hey, man, like, I, you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to do this interview. And, I think you take a chance possibly every time you do. And so, I especially still being operational. And so that doesn't, that's not blind to me at all. I really appreciate you taking the time, brother. I appreciate you putting in the work and being willing to talk about this and also being willing to call out what you need to call out to keep the boys moving forward. You know what I mean? I think for me,
Yeah.
that's really important. I love to see that shit, man. I think that's powerful. I think guys need that, especially need to get pushed. And and I just really
Yeah.
appreciate you, man, a lot.
Well, we are a brother's keeper. So we got, nobody's coming to
That's
save us. We
right.
got to look out after each other. Awesome. And it was a pleasure meeting y'all.
Yep.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, be safe out
All right.
there, brother.
Bye.
Be safe out there, but have
Oh,
some
will
fun.
do. Yeah. Always
All
keep
right,
it
man.
fun. Keep it spicy. All right. Bye.